Okay, class, here we go with our next video that has to do with calculating a slope using word problems. So on the board here, we have for our problem is, okay, a 1-inch rise for a 16-inch run. Let's stop right there. We know we're talking about slope, and we know that slope or if you don't know, I can't assume you know. And I don't want to assume, not trying to insult your intelligence, but just trying to define slope. You'll notice that oftentimes for slope, you'll see the letter M. And there'll be videos coming up about, well, why do we use M? But for right now, slope, we use the letter M. But for the definition of slope, we have rise over run. And you may have remembered that from previous math classes, but just wanted to point that out here that when you hear slope, one thing to think of is slope is defined as rise over run. So back up here, okay, a 1-inch rise for a 16-inch run makes it easier for a wheelchair rider to go up a ramp. Our question is, how long must the ramp be if the rise is 24 inches? So what we do is actually we draw a picture. So here's my ramp. This side represents the 1-inch rise. This side from here to here represents my 16-inch run from up here. Okay. Now the question they're asking us is, how long must a ramp be? Well, how long? Well, that represents the run. So for this diagram, I don't know what my run is going to be, so I put X. But I do know that my rise is going to equal 24 inches, meaning from here to here is going to equal 24 inches. And now a good way to solve this is just to use proportions. So I can write this as 1 over 16 is equal to 24 over X. And now when I cross multiply, I get X times 1 equals X, and 16 times 24 is going to give me 384. And so that means up here in this diagram, my run has to be 384 inches. So here, X equals 384. And that's it for that problem. Okay, our second problem dealing with calculating the slope and word problems is we want to find the slope of a pipe that slopes down 3/5 inches per foot. And when you hear a word like per, you also want to think fraction. So that means the 3/5 is going to be our numerator, and the 1 foot is going to be our denominator. And we also know that 1 feet equals 12 inches. So we'll probably have a fraction of 3 feet for the numerator divided by 12. Let's just first write this out and see what we get. All right, so we have written on the whiteboard, find the slope of a pipe that slopes down. They tell us that it slopes down, so we know that in the end, our answer is going to be negative because they tell us that this pipe is sloping downward. So if I drew a pipe, let's see. Okay, there's the picture of our pipe. It's sloping downward, so we know our final answer is going to be negative. But it's sloping downward at 3 inches per foot. Let's change these words into a math equation. Here's our 3/5 inch per foot. And now we can rewrite this. The numerator will stay the same, 3/5 inch, but 1 foot equals 12 inches. So we're going to change our denominator to 12 inches. And now that our numerator and denominator have the same units, we can just simplify this by first rewriting this as 3/5 divided by 12. Now this is 3/5 divided by 12, but I think it's good to rewrite this way. So hopefully this will trigger 2 things. Well, one, what steps do we take to divide 3/5 times 12? Well, I know we're going to have to change that division sign to multiplication, and then we're going to have to flip this fraction. Now, since we have this one fraction here, 3/5, let's make 12 a fraction by writing 1 as its denominator. So I just rewrote 12 as 12 divided by 1 because 12 divided by 1 is 12. Okay. Now we're going to continue this over here. We have 3/5. We changed the division sign to multiplication. and I use my dot for multiplication. And now we take the reciprocal of 12 over 1, which is going to be 1 over 12. Okay, so now we have 3/5 times 1 over 12. Numerator times numerator, 3 times 1 equals 3. And 5 times 12 equals 60. And now this fraction can be reduced because 3 and 60 have a common factor of 3. So now if I divide my numerator by the greatest common factor of 3, I have 3 divided by 3 is going to be 1. And now I divide 60 by the greatest common factor 3, and that leaves me 20. And since the problem told us that the slope is downward, I know I have to include a negative sign. So the slope for this pipe is going to be negative 1 over 20 inches. And I just put I in for inches. Okay, that's it for this problem. On to the next one. We have 1 and then 2. Yeah, okay, so 2 more problems after this one. Okay, so I'll read this first and then write it on the board. A local road has a grade of 2%. The grade of a road is its slope expressed as a percent. Find the slope of the road as a fraction and then simplify. So here we have the grade of the road is 2%, and the grade of the road is its slope expressed as a percent. Okay, so they're defining what grade is. So grade of road is its slope expressed or written as a percent. And that's why we have the 2%. So now they want us to basically change this percent to a fraction and then simplify. Okay, so what we want to do is change 2% to a fraction and then simplify. By definition, some percent, it means that number is going to be our numerator and 100 is our denominator. So 2% as a fraction is 2 over 100. Their greatest common factor, meaning 2 and 100, 2 and 100, the greatest common factor is 2. So now I can divide my numerator by 2 and denominator by 2. Now 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 100 divided by 2 equals 50. And so 1 over 50 is the fraction form of the percent, 2%. Okay, here comes our last problem. We start out with a mountain that has a rise that's equal to 30 feet, and it has a run that's equal to 490 feet. Using ditto marks to not have to write mountain again. Mountain has a run equal to 490 feet. What is the slope? Well, our slope is defined as, remember, you can use M for slope, is rise divided by run, or rise over run. So now we've written the formula for slope, and we can substitute our values in. The rise is 30 feet. And the run equals to 490 feet. Now, 30 and 490, you can find the greatest common factor. You can work that out. But I go ahead and just tell you that the greatest common factor is 10. So I can divide that numerator and denominator by 10. So now that gives me 30 divided by 10 equals to 3. And then 490 divided by 10 equals to 49. And this fraction cannot be simplified. So therefore, our final answer is the slope is equal to 3 feet over 39 feet, 39 over 49 feet, 3 over 49 feet. So just by using one of our definitions of slope being rise over run, and then we substitute what the rise is, what the run is into our formula, and then begin to simplify. We find our greatest common factor between 30 and 490 is 10. And then that gives us a final answer of 3 feet over 49 feet. And that is our last problem, where we have to calculate a slope in word problems. Thanks everybody for listening. Keep practicing, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.